There is nothing wrong with your radio.
Do not attempt to adjust the volume.
We are controlling the broadcast.
For the next hour we will control all that you hear.
You are about to experience the knowledge and insights of the Media Mothership.
All right, you're listening to Media Mothership here on Edge Radio 99.3 FM. This is your host, Craig, joined again this week by, I think there's a term now in my head, the mini celebrity.
No, not many celebrity.
You incepted me with that wonderful phrase. Anyway, Angus Metcalf, who has been putting together video essays. Last week we had you on to unpack your thesis, your honours thesis at the University of Tasmania in the media school that was looking at Twin Peaks and various theories around meaning making within that. What was some of the key terms we started to explore?
Oh, yeah. So it was basically about media as a spiritual experience. I called it media re-enchantment.
Re-enchantment.
The ways in which we use media to re-mythologize the world is the ticket.
So because, Angus, you've been, previous to the thesis, kind of experimenting with this space called video essays, on today's episode, we'll dive into some of the kind of costs of creating these video essays. Beyond the monetary cost, that kind of effort required to create these pieces, the type of meaning you get out of it, and hopefully a bit of hope for where this effort in making video essays can possibly get us in the future. First, I guess let's go into the basics as to what video essays are and what your own involvement with video essays have been.
Sure thing. So, it's sort of its own genre, I might describe it as. On YouTube you might have Let's Plays, you might have vlogs. A video essay I'd say it's more choreographed than the both of it. One typically, writes an essay first. It's pretty rare that you just go off the cuff of your head and you just improvise on the spot everything that you're going to say. It's usually a bit more organized. That's what I tend to like about it. It tends to have a bit more of a high bar of quality. But typically speaking, it's an essay that's spoken aloud. Often it's about a specific topic. Maybe someone wants to talk about an album, or they want to talk about a video game, or there's something political happening in the world and goddamn, they have an opinion on it. And these things, they tend to be visual. It's pretty rare because it's the main thing that's the difference between it and a podcast, I suppose, is that it is edited across time. So the lines might have been spoken half an hour or 2 days apart from one another just because of filming sessions, or you just decided to refilm a part because the audio sounds bad. And the idea then is that someone might use photos in an essay to sort of, printed on paper to help them, whether it be a graph or a photo. You generally might put it on screen, or you might cut to it. Yeah.
So I guess, as you're saying, it starts with an essay. So it's really the idea of thinking. Yeah, it's not just information. It's not just providing a review of a movie or the top 5 video games in this genre to play. You're really looking to put forward an argument, some kind of exploration. Are there any examples from your own body of video essay work that kind of captures that?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'd say that my channel it bounces between 2 different kinds of video essays. I might just call them short-term projects and long-term projects. So typically I tend to make really long research projects, and these things tend to take a year or 2 to actually, complete the research for. So for instance, one time I made a really big series about the legacy of anti-Semitism because I'm really fun to be around. It was a strange year of my life, let me tell you. I became so pathologically knowledgeable about
Was it anti-Semitism through a particular text?
Just sort of unpacking it, the historical legacy of it. I just became rather entranced about trying to understand something. It's there's this, I can't remember who said it, but it's this phrase where it's I study what I'm not. Where it's just I don't understand it. I just want to try and understand what leads someone there. And that sort of required a lot of historical analysis and contemporary sources and parsing things.
Because I guess, I mean, with that as an example, I mean, one of the things that strikes me as challenging within video essays is that kind of audio-visual reasoning you need to provide, right? So you're looking at making meaning through specific edits, where you'll juxtapose maybe some sound with some image, and you're kind of setting up a rhythm. I mean, a lot that gets unrecognized at the time, but were there particular, like, was there Leni Rieflin style film you were trying to cut into there?
No, I decided in that series that it's good to go into these big projects with some, I suppose you might say, convictions. So, for instance, I decided, my favorite film about the Shoah, which is the Hebrew word for the Holocaust, is this 9-hour documentary. And it's like, it never shows a clip of the actual, the event, because it has moral convictions. And I sort of figured, I probably can't do justice to the most horrific war crime in the history of humanity within like half an hour of a video essay. So it's kind of like the way I approached it was instead like, I'm going to talk about things that surround it. There was a part where I talked a bit about trying to unpack Holocaust denial and Holocaust fetishism, which is some culture industry sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I talked around it. That's basically what I did. And in that, you basically, you generally put a little bit of music just to sort of cover the crappy sound design that you might do. And you also tend to sort of cut between, maybe it's a movie clip. Perhaps you watch something in research and it's like a funny little 5-second thing and you can cut to it as just a bit of levity. Or it's an interview clip with the author of the book that you're citing, just to sort of make it a bit less monotonous than just listening to your voice all that time.
So again, you have that skill that's required to be developed, that kind of audio-visual reasoning. But then just as you were explaining there, what I'm really struck by is the importance also of that subjective position you have, that your perspective matters, and that you've got a perspective and you've got a personal take on it. That's going to be in that essay. Again, it's not a review. It's not something dry that's just, here's the reasoning around it. There's a kind of honesty within it, I guess you're trying to convey. Would that be right?
Yes. So I think that a lot of people come to video essays for personality. They don't really, maybe you're really good at research, but they mainly come to you because they like the way that you say it. And I think that the way I sort of tend to approach it is that you have to be honest about you're just one person. Maybe you have a friend who watches it with you and you only have so many resources and you kind of have to play to it. Otherwise people will find you obnoxious. I had something in my head and it was going to be excellent, but I think that I'll eventually find it. We can move.
But you have to be quite vulnerable, don't you? You have to be very honest. And so for the anti-Semitism piece, obviously that's a really polarizing issue. It's really emotive. Were there any perspectives within that mattered to you, or did it come about from a personal stake you had in this? Or
so there were lots of things where it's I grew up in a very not religious household. Both my parents were obnoxious atheists, so it was also this sort of analog of just trying to learn a little bit about the emotional pulls of religion. That was another thing that really fascinated me about it. Just sort of trying to unpack it and figure out my feelings towards it. And I sort of started it mainly thinking about online hate speech and so on. But then I sort of came out the other side of it with this deep appreciation for the passage of time. Right. There's only been about 4,000 years since, Abraham supposedly came down from that mountain.
Yes.
So supposedly. And I think that when it comes to video essays, I think that I had it again, but I lost it again. I'm so good at this.
Well, I guess you haven't shied away from controversial issues. I mean,
no.
You mentioned before that the Port Arthur incident here in Tasmania was it one of the earlier?
It was the first thing I ever made.
Right.
But so by the way, people at home, if you really want to get into this, don't start with a 10-hour series. It's a really bad idea because you're not going to know what you're doing. And especially if it's controversial, you really don't want to start by doing that. I'm very proud of myself for doing it and making it, but nonetheless, it was alarming behavior on my behalf.
So this Port Arthur series you created goes for 10 hours in total?
Yes.
The video essay?
Yes,
right.
and it's technically 11 because I did a review of the movie that came out, Ram.
Right.
As well, sort of as a coda. I finished the series a year later. I'm I never actually ended up talking about this in depth. There you go. But it was just... there was some analogs in my life where I was sort of wanted to figure out why people would believe things that were obviously not true.
Right.
And then I sort of just became hyper focused on this, and we had a little crew, my friends, we all sort of tagged together, and we all sort of worked on trying to make this thing happen.
You were quite young putting this together? Or?
I would have been about maybe 22, 23.
Yeah.
So
right.
I made it, so over the course of, so I started the project around the 25th anniversary, which was on that would have been 2021. And I finished it by the 26th anniversary. So I did it all within 1 year, which was hellish, and I had absolutely no life.
Was there much response to it? I mean, the more controversial spaces, how have you found?
There were typically two audiences. The first audience were video essay watchers who managed to stumble across me. So they tended to be younger. A lot of them were American or from the UK. So they were kind of like, oh, this is an interesting little thing. I didn't know about this.
Right.
And then the second audience were, of course, conspiracy theorists who didn't take very kindly to me sort of trying to debunk everything they had worked on so very hard over the course of the... I can sort of give you the pitch with this about why I found it so fascinating. There's this amazing book by Muirhead and Rosenblum called The New Conspiracism. Their hypothesis in the book is basically like, there's this old style of conspiracism. Back, if you look at like the assassination of JFK and 9/11 or whatever, a lot of effort went into it. There's a lot of evidence. It might not be good, but there is a mountain of the stuff. Whereas in our sort of more social media era, there is this sort of this new conspiracy where you're just kind of more likely to say, oh, it was rigged, and then you move on because the 24/7 access to your Twitter feed, it just updates. You need stuff that's new. There's no point in trying to actually give evidence to something when the gesture of saying it is kind of enough. And what really fascinated me about that conspiracy theory was that it kind of was at this intersection between the two, where they had a lot of stuff, they had a lot of files, but they also just really hated John Howard. So that him being a satanic pedophile or whatever was kind of enough. And then they just kept on moving on.
So they had already decided what they felt, and they were conveniently looking for whatever lined up.
They decided back in 1996, and they've not moved since. So I went into it knowing that I was not going to really change that many minds.
And that, again, with video essays, I find the ones that I'm most engaged with are those ones which aren't really trying to aggressively persuade.
Yes, those are obnoxious.
But are more inviting into a kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Around this very complicated issue, and bringing together evidence or debates or discussions, or even just unpacking why we ended up with what we did. It could be a video game that didn't go very well, or it could be the spiraling decline of the U.S. stock market or something.
Yeah, it's the amazing thing about video essays is that it's essentially a format, and you can do the format about functionally anything, and it's as long as you sort of have the charisma. I tend to take this approach that like a little bit of ego is good. We sort of like disparage that, like but like if you watch something and the dude, like the person who's making it is kind of like, oh, this is kind of what I think, whatever. Well, you're not going to watch it because they don't even believe it. Why should I spend my time focusing on what you have to say if you don't even really believe it? So you kind of have to have a little bit of moxie. You have to be like, no, what I have to say is excellent. And you have to be kind of overconfident and risk being vulnerable and wrong a little bit.
I remember in classes I'd teach when it came around to an essay and try to talk about how to write good essays. I remember one of the essay writing books, there's so many, but one that really made sense to me was talking about writing an essay really needs to be seen as entering a conversation, right? If you're simply going to be polemic and assume that you're going to persuade someone just by yelling at them, it's not going to work as an essay either. I mean, and I think the anecdote they drew upon was, just as if you walk into a party and, you might have the most interesting thought in your head, right? There's a whole bunch of people at this party, you don't know them. You could just walk up to a group that's in a conversation and interrupt them and say, did you guys ever really know what SpongeBob's about with atomic bombs, right? You could just drop that truth bomb on them.
Yeah. Or,
and this was his argument with writing good essays, you listen to what they're talking about and you think of a way that you can insert what your thoughts are within the natural flow of the conversation.
Yes.
Something where you're actually, again, listening as well as talking.
Yes.
This is the ultimate point. And again, it's that kind of back and forth where you're wanting to find a conversation which is happening today to create an interesting video essay around and enter into that public conversation. That's so exciting, I guess, to see the video essay work. I mean, it's one thing with that kind of message in a bottle narrative. You know, you can just, stand in your soapbox and yell from the mountaintops of the world your truth. But, it could just be a message in a bottle. No one opens it. No one reads it. It sits there with one view. Yet you've been able to develop quite an audience for the video essays you've created. Clearly, you've tapped into some really fascinating conversations that people have wanted to talk with you about. How have you found that? I guess this is more of a parasocial dimension. How have you found that relationship with the audience? How have you found that conversation that your work is starting to create? Is it the conversation you wanted to have?
So I would say that a good way to sort of answer that question, which is I have many things to say about. So the second kind of video I make on my channel tends the short-term projects. They tend to be something where it's like it starts as a shower thought, and then I just go make it. I'm in the middle of researching something bigger, and then I go make something that makes me laugh, or I'm like, oh, this is a really cool little idea. And that tends to be where I get most of the viewers.
Those are still long, right? We're talking an hour.
Oh, they're still really long, but it's the idea where it's like I make it within 2 months as opposed to like 2 years.
Yeah.
And what's really, you sort of do that knowing that you're just making something because you are having fun making it. And if someone else watches it and they like it, that's awesome. Hell yeah, great for them. But then you sort of get recommended to people who are not really trying to see you for you. So the biggest videos on my channel concern the Saw movies. Basically, in 2021, I thought about two things. I thought about Port Arthur and the Saw movies. There's a neurosis going on in my brain. It was just that me and my friend Peter, that's all we talked. We were just, every other moment we weren't thinking about the Port Arthur thing. We were thinking about, God, Saw 6 is a weird movie, isn't it? So it was just like, we sort of thought it was an appropriate exit out, to sort of enter the new phase of the channel. Is we kind of made this video and it was silly, and it's me just kind of overthinking a movie that is like basically the Saw movies. They all have kind of like a simple moral, more or less. Saw 2 is kind of about patience. You have to sort of sit still. Saw 3 is kind of about forgiveness. Saw 4 is about not going through doors too quickly. It's really weird. It's kind of bad. But Saw 6 is kind of about how the American healthcare system is systemically broken and it's implicitly predatory towards the lower classes in society. And you're like, hang on a second. What's going on over here? So it was just like, there's all of these little... We just decided, let's make it. Let's have fun. It's going to be 50 minutes and let's just have a laugh. And then sort of 2 years later, a new Saw movie came out and it got picked up by the algorithm. Right. And then in a moment of sort of like euphoria, me and Peter scraped together a Saw 7 video. We made it really quickly and then it's got really big as well.
So what was it that you started to notice? Suddenly more views coming in, more comments?
I sort of started being... So like I mentioned this to Craig earlier, that like if you want to start a YouTube channel, you don't start talking about conspiracy theories. Because you're immediately going to hamstring your channel's ability to be able to be shown to people, because the algorithm can't tell the difference between debunking content and actual cooker stuff.
So what happens with the conspiracy label?
Typically, it gets picked up by the algorithm as like, okay, don't share this to people.
Right.
Right, so like, I mean, you could go on your thing. I mean, obviously you've seen my channel before, Craig, but if you went into incognito mode and you tried to find the old Razzle Dazzle 1, it might be really hard for you to find me because I kind of started in a pretty dodgy place.
This is the Port Arthur, the
anti-Semitism stuff,
right.
I mean, like, there's certain keywords when it comes to anti-Semitism that the YouTube's much harsher on. If you're just discussing it in a good faith thing, the people are like, well, it's anti-hate speech. It's a bit different.
But even though you were taking, a kind of carefully researched academic approach to it, it still got hit by a kind of hammer that treated it as conspiracy.
Oh, if you just say in a video, okay, we're talking about Holocaust denial, the YouTube algorithm doesn't tend to like that.
Yeah.
So with my videos, another step to this is that I don't actually mess with ads. because I obviously talk about many controversial topics, and I don't want to have to worry about changing my words to fit to make money.
So this is to monetize a channel.
Yeah, I do not want to deal with that at all. And I want to have as much sort of integrity and artistic freedom, you might say in quotes, as I can to be able to say what I want to say. So I just do not mess with it in the slightest.
Because many people might know, it's not like, I guess part of the thing that's fascinating about social media, creating content for the internet is, yes, while everyone can kind of put something together if they've got a laptop and a camera on their laptop or their phone, nevertheless, it's not like there's golden in their hills, right? You're not going to, there's certain barriers to monetizing a video, for instance. You have to have a certain number of viewers.
Yeah, it's about 3,000?
3,000?
Something like that, yeah, 3,000 viewers. Or like subscriptions, rather. And you have to have a certain level of watch hours
within that.
Yeah, so like I hit that ages ago, and I just did not want to mess with it. Right. Because, I mean, like obviously I just want to make the stuff that I want to make, and I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it because there's just something about the medium that I really enjoy. And yeah, I just don't want to think about that, I suppose.
Well, I guess because that does bring us to that process and cost question, right? I mean, there's a lot of costs involved in the effort and labor that one puts into a video essay. I guess you could trivialize it, mythologize it as a labor of love, but nevertheless, there's some questions around work-life balance, right? The idea of self-worth that can come about for creating these texts, and then that kind of dopamine rush of micro watching the metrics. How have you found those questions of cost with video essay?
So I would say that there's two costs that you sort of deal with within your realm of mental health. The first cost is obviously time. One can make an essay, and once they've finished the essay, it's done. You can hand it into a printer. You could show it to a friend, but it's
like a written
done.
Essay. Maybe put it up as a blog.
Yeah, like whereas with a video essay, you have to finish writing it, and then you have to get someone to read it to tell you if it's good. No terrible reasoning mistakes. No, that's a really weird take there, Angus. I really don't agree with that one. And then also you have to film it. And then you have to spend time filming it, making sure that you don't mess up your words, because you could say the opposite thing of what you mean by accidentally mispronouncing a consonant. And then like after you film it, God helps, hopefully if you have actually set your recording, your audio software up, hopefully that's good, because I've had a couple of those mistakes, and then you have to refilm 3 hours the next day. I was a bit more loosey-goosey back in the day about that. The Saw 6 video is notorious for its having terrible audio, just because I thought no one would ever watch it.
So what were the barriers of entry at a technical level, while you can get away with cheap stuff in terms of, your phone, what was the equipment you were trying to create those early ones with?
So the first, it was, we filmed it on my friend Joel's camera.
Like a DSLR?
Yeah, DSLR. It was a Canon something or other.
Okay.
And then he had a shotgun mic, and using that in a tiny room wasn't a good idea. But and then also, like, if you want to do a voiceover, say you want to correct yourself or whatever, you have to have your own sort of microphone set up. I have like an Audio Technica condenser mic that I sort of use for that. Editing off software was also prohibitively expensive before I, let's just say, started to figure out how to get around having to pay Adobe for money.
Yes.
That was a joke, lawyers. That was not. That was me saying something as a piece of satire.
This is incidental.
Yeah, incidental. It was an example of what you shouldn't do. Haha. So basically, obviously, you had to do all of that, and then you had to teach yourself how to do it.
Yeah.
You can just like give yourself a whole bunch of footage, but you don't know how to do anything yet. It took me a year before I figured out how adjustment layers worked. So if I wanted, I would do a color grade of some early footage in the very early days. But then, like, if it's like slightly off, I had to go through and manually like get all the individual little bits of chopped up footage. And I can't say words off the cuff good. I can't read off of a script good because of dyslexia or whatever the hell, So I would have to cut it pretty finely, and then you have to manually color correct every single cut, and it takes like a full day just to do that. And
So
then
do you
I
have
discovered
like an auto cue or a piece of paper?
I tend to sort of put the essay on like a laptop screen, and I put it at eye level, so that way it's kind of just behind the camera. So most of the time, it looks like I'm looking just behind the camera.
Right.
Sometimes it's a little bit off. You know what I mean? There's some videos where I'm like, "Wow, I'm looking over here." You know. So you have to do all of that. And then you have to figure out like music, and there's all of these prohibitively time-expensive things. So on top of there being time, you also then have to deal with doing it again and again to then sort of try and feed an audience, which is the second big thing. You know, because it's all well and good if you're just making it and 5 people are watching it, but you're having fun. But at a certain point, you're sort of like, I've been neglecting my studies.
Yeah.
I've not left the house in a couple of months, really, because I've been more interested in trying to chase an ethereal number. And then you just sort of think about like, well, I made this video and it didn't even get 1,000 views over a year. What am I doing? Why the hell did I spend so long making this thing if it's not, there's no payoff to it?
That idea of self-worth.
Self-worth is a big thing, you know.
Yeah.
Again, like you have to have a bit of ego to even think that you're valuable enough to be able to make something like this. So I don't disparage having a little bit of self-worth. And ultimately, like you do this and you do learn some transferable skills. I became a monster at being able to edit footage pretty quickly.
Yes.
You know, and like being able to show some friends like, oh, this is how you fix this problem and your thing. So being in the media school and being pretty good at video editing was pretty good for me.
Shout out to our friends at the media school.
Shout out Andy. So there are transferable skills, and you can say to yourself, like, well, I actually am learning. And if you do like try and learn something new of every single video you make, you can sort of keep going through that. Yeah. And you sort of figure, well, it's not going to hit the first time. It will eventually hit eventually. But the problem that arises, going back to that idea of like, I kind of found an audience that I didn't initially like very much.
How does that happen? I mean,
it's because, so I was making videos about so many things.
Yeah.
Obviously the anti-Semitism stuff.
Yes.
I made videos about like music or like just like fandom stories,
so
or
like popular musicians.
Yeah,
or
well, I wouldn't say
genre,
popular. They're more like avant-garde sort of. You sort of. I find that like there are so many things that are oversaturated on YouTube. You know, everyone has a video essay about Silent Hill 2.
Yes.
Not everyone has a video essay about the noise musician Linger Ignota.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, I have an interesting take on something, and I've just noticed that no one else has talked about it. Maybe I can find whoever is looking for Linger Ignota online. And it also happens if you happen to have a relatively novel and clever take on the thing, then that's pretty good. So the first video I ever made that actually went somewhere was this video. It was sort of me sort of unpacking this, let's call it a fandom drama, I suppose, between 2 artists. They got into a relationship. One was very abusive to the other one. And then sort of trying to unpack my feelings for the album that I really loved. This sort of like, oh, I'm doing a little bit of either or in my head. Do I love being a good person, or do I love the artwork more?
Right.
You know, like how do I stress about if it's going to corrupt me a little bit.
So these were 2 celebrities? They're
not celebrities. They're just
artists,
well known in the
creators.
American extreme noise metal scene. You know, it was
real people, real drama, and you were unpacking.
Yeah, and then you have to also be careful because they are real people and they might actually watch a video. So you have to actually be cognizant of being sensitive is another thing. So anyway, you have like things like that, and then there's like pop singers, and then there's like video games, and those are kind of like the fun things to do. You just have like, again, it's this shower thought sort of thing where you're like, I made it, I really like it. Like we were talking about like the Silent Hill video that I made, which is I think one of the, I look back on it, I think it's a little bit rushed just in the production because I was quite sad. I'm like, I just sort of made it so I had something to do. But I look back on it, and it is the thing that my friends sort of tell me, where they're just like, "Holy hell! Look at you go! You've got like something going on in your noggin, I suppose." But then, so I know that when you're chasing things that are kind of obscure, like a Linger Ignota or Arena Sawayama, or you talk about Nitram, a film from 2021 that many people in Tasmania didn't want to see. You kind of know that not a lot of people are really going to come and find you because there's only so many people who care about those things.
Yeah.
However, there's a big audience for Saw films online. And the consumptive styles of that variety of video essay, and then what you're trying to do as a sort of like, you think you're kind of pretentious and clever.
Yeah.
That sort of conflicts. And there's kind of a problem with that. So I can talk a bit about the Saw thing because It's probably going to be on my. I prefer the Saw thing to be on my gravestone as opposed to Port Arthur.
Right. Yeah, because what happened there? The Saw things came after. So you were creating.
So I was working on all of these little video essays, and then
quite obscure, niche,
randomly Saw
deep
6,
dives.
Saw X, which is the 10th Saw film, went to cinemas, and all of a sudden the algorithm was like, "Oh, Saw content, go into the slop verse.
Yeah.
Everyone can go watch it." So it got huge. And then, obviously, I was sort of chasing that high because I'd been waiting for
you'd
years.
already made some Saw video essays before Saw 10 came
So
out.
I'd made one Saw video essay, and then the movie came out and it got big, and I was kind of like, Angus hubris? Oh my God, I'm going to make another one. And I made it very quickly, and I don't think it's that good.
And that the initial Saw video essay was again, much like all the other pieces of work you'd created, a personal interest, a kind of niche.
Yeah, personal interest. I didn't
weird
think that
approach to it.
I didn't think that Saw would be that big, but it turns out that it people love it.
Wow.
So in my personal life, people know me most for Saw. So like so
really?
shout out to my communicating research friend group. My video was recently cited in the bibliography of another video by a great YouTube channel called Girl on Film, which specializes in like feminist analysis of horror films. And I was just I was in the I don't know what the down there part is called, the show me more part. And I had my IRL friends be like, I just watched this video and you're there. You do the YouTube thing? Holy shit. I'm like, I hadn't gotten around to telling all of these people that I do video essays quite just yet. And I'm like, yeah, that's something I do. Maybe don't look much further back apart from the Saw stuff because there's some embarrassing stuff there. But then it is kind of, it's the most amount of comments I get are from Saw people.
Well, look, it's an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? When through the endorsement of someone else, suddenly there's engagement in your piece.
Yeah.
Right? And particularly when that endorsement by someone else is respected or has a significant following themselves, suddenly you can find these peripheral pieces of content which have limited engagement or no engagement. Suddenly they take off. It's really rare to happen, though.
It is. No, it's in my entire channel history, it has happened. So like the Linger Ignota video, which last time I checked, it's sitting at about 30,000 views. Very respectable for such an obscure musician. You know what I mean?
But that would have also
that's
ticked
sort of
over
built
from
over time, right?
Yeah.
Like
kind of long tail.
Yeah, it never like suddenly went from like 400 views to 30,000. It sort of just ticked. You get about like 100 views on it a day or so, right? So it accumulates over time, and that's an audience that I'm fond of. Every now and again, you get like some dude, and he's trying to defend like the prick who was mean to Linger Ignota,
right?
And like they're like, "Oh, what's it do this SJW?" And I'm like, this entire comment section is against you, bud. They're all here sharing their experiences about like how the music resonated with them, talking about their own experiences, and I found it just tremendously heartwarming. That's the attention that I kind of wanted. Not a lot, but the people who liked it had a really strong reaction to it. It was very similar with the Silent Hill video, where a lot of people were like, that got really dark, and it reminded me a bit too much of myself. Oh no, kind of thing.
And look, it's interesting in terms of, it's reminding me of, I forget anyway, the theorist who came up with the long tail idea, and he was saying we need a different way to assess success, right? Particularly he's really talking about major movies and television and books, rather than seeing the short window of a launch date, so the opening weekend of a film, as defining its success, whether it's made it or not. There are texts which survive slowly trickling numbers over time, and they're referred to as long tail success stories, where and the examples he gives are ones where there's something like Into the Void. It's a autobiographical story of this mountaineer guy and his experiences. Great book, right? It had been out for like 12, 15 years, had really small numbers, but suddenly a movie came out that was based on this. Horrible movie, crap movie, but it triggered interest in the book. Yeah. And suddenly, again, this long tail theory, this explanation of you can have a text out there and it will, over time, I guess, be found or discovered. Buena Vista Social Club, same thing, that kind of genre of music.
It reminded me of a really interesting example, actually, that you might be slightly more of in your wheelhouse. I'm trying to remember, I don't know how to pronounce the name of the artist because it's Japanese. Maybe you might be able to help me there, Craig. Basically, a couple of years ago, like this song went viral that was like from the 80s. It's Plastic Love by Mari Takeuchi.
This is the city pop.
City
stuff.
Pop, that's it, yes.
Yeah.
And like that
That's
was
a
like,
great example.
I don't know if she was really that famous back in the day. You might be able to critique me there.
Oh, it got me watching some video essays about city pop. And again, I'm no expert in it, but it is a long tail example in terms of here's a genre of music in the 80s that was of modest success. It was a genre in Japan. It was basically elevator music. It was innocuous jazz, and then suddenly it got picked up, from what I understand, by tourists, visitors, people that started to collect vinyl, and they started to come across these vinyl pressings of the city pop stuff. And then, much like that kind of YouTube channel, which is the anime girl listening to music to study to, it started to creep into these playlist musics of people just background musicking. And now it's...
I read this book recently. I forget the author's name, but it's just called Filter World, which is sort of analyzing the impact of like filters on like our lived experience within the internet age. And he sort of ends his book, which is quite doomy and gloomy, about the horror of our current existence, all of this kind of thing. He kind of ends it by talking about how like that's a real song made by someone a long time ago. It was picked up by some algorithms. It just so happened to tick some certain boxes about a recent resurgence in like Japanese music, the anime beats, that kind of thing. And he sort of talks about like, yes, that was something that was proposed by a machine, I suppose. But nonetheless, it is this thing where it's kind of magical that it's got this amazing second wind by nothing more than the inertia of a machine.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's something, you can't predict it. I mean, you can't say, all right, I'm going to make a long tail product. It's something which is, I mean, I love that term within video gaming, the emergent gameplay narrative, where, you can have game designers doing their best to design a game, but suddenly the players themselves... do something unusual, something strange, and suddenly a game story appears that's emergent.
Yes, systems interact, so on and so forth, that kind of thing. Yes.
But again, you can't bank on it. And I guess this is a bit of the mythologizing of making media. We all get seduced by these one-off stories of celebrity X stumbles across some content and tweets about it, and suddenly
you're famous,
right?
Yes.
But that's so rare, right?
Yes, and it doesn't happen.
It's the message in the bottle narrative, right? I mean, it's a huge ocean out there. There's so much content, and what is it they say about culture industries? They say, it's like a 5% or less success rate to a 95% failure rate, right? Yeah. It's just way out of whack in terms of it as a viable industry model, right? It's built on success and huge success, right? If you make it successful, it's fantastically successful. But at the same time, there's a lot of failure or a lot of unrecognized talent or a lot of kind of by a certain metric, ticking over content.
And what's really interesting to me about that is that I know that I was kind of chasing it. I have all these moral convictions, but nonetheless, I still kept doing it, ignoring my schoolwork, neglecting some friends and maybe a partner or two, instead of just trying to do this thing because it was my North Star. And then it happened, and I didn't like it, which was really a strange sort of. I got the Soul 7 video, I made it, and then all of a sudden, I had this second video that was getting heaps of views. It went from being I got 100 views across the channel in a week to thousands and thousands and thousands. And still to this day, I still get a couple hundred views a week, a day on those Saw videos combined. But it sort of brought this audience that I didn't like. Now, there's all of these different kinds of audiences for video essays. We're sort of talking about these folding ideas, these FD signifiers, these people who come to this person because they have this background and this voice and this perspective, and they're just so clever, and each video is an event. But most people don't really watch video essays to have their mind blown. They're watching these things for comfort.
Have you had people reply to your essays with those narratives of saying, I'm watching your video, but it's kind of in my... I'm doing comfort stuff.
There's a one of my favorite comments is I make a obviously, like the Lingering Noda video, it's about this harsh noise musician and she's screaming her brains out and it's really scary. And I'm like, it's not something I'd listen to while I'm folding laundry. And like some commenter is like, well, I fold my laundry while I listen to it, but there's something mentally wrong with me clinically. I'm like, yes, that's exactly the thing.
Yes.
So like it is this sort of strange kind of comfort media. Like I find myself returning to certain video essays to sort of, if for no other reason, then I sort of find that like a text that's like really big, you can it takes multiple times to read through and properly understand it. It's like trying to understand, like, I don't know, trying to read. I'll be a boring boy for a second. It's like trying to like understand like Nietzsche, and like you read one book and you're like, oh yeah, I got it the first time, without like picking up that he was being ironic the whole time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it takes a couple of times, I think, to really understand something, and like I feel like if you don't have a disagreement with like a video essay, you probably haven't watched it very hard. You know?
I mean, I do think that idea of something you can settle down with, and you're not necessarily being aggressively confronted all the time. I mean, for me, I've come across over the last year or two a particular upswing in people talking about cozy X.
Yes.
Right. So I have friends in the lit RPG writing space, and some of them have defined their work as cozy fiction. Right. It's there's no conflict. Right. There's a main character, but they go fishing, and they're just then baking bread, and there's an audience for this cozy genre engagement. More and more things I'm just noticing in the periphery are starting to attach this term cozy X to it. Cozy writing.
It's a marketing term, essentially. And like, I don't begrudge anyone for...
Cozy games. I came across some video games that were just... And again, they're not about... I mean, it's an interesting psychological phenomena that seems to be getting some grassroots attention. And of course, then there'll be industrial top-down attention. But at this moment, it still seems in this kind of liminal in-between space. I think it's something
like we have this like culture of second screening, like playing a video game while listening to a video essay or a podcast.
Yeah, look, I mean,
of course, it's a whole thing, right? And like people have sort of, I've read some comments sometimes, and then like, oh, I fall asleep to your videos, and I'm like, that's crazy. That's like a really sort of almost beautiful kind of comment.
Do you reckon there's an AMSR? What is it called? Sorry, ASMR.
ASMR, yeah. Oh god, I don't think I have a voice. I sort of jump up on my pitch all the time, and I kind of squeal occasionally. So like, I don't know how people fall asleep to me, but nonetheless, it's very flattering.
Fascinating how the audience defines who you are.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
How do you take that on? How do you does it define you in a way? It's like, oh, I guess I never thought I was that person. I guess I am. I mean, do you ever
I feel like over time I've grown more cynical towards it.
Right. So rather than just accepting
it's less that I don't want. I feel like if you're making this thing and an audience does find you, I feel like you don't really owe them anything unless they're giving you money. And like the only thing they're really giving me is their time, and I very much appreciate their time. But you came to me because I gave you something that was cool and you didn't think about ahead of time. And I feel like I can't do that by playing to your interest. It's kind of why I don't like the Soul 7 video. It's because I made it because I wanted to fulfill a need, rather than me having something in my body and I literally can't stop talking about it. So I just have to make the thing to purge myself of it, and then leave it behind me.
And that can be a really difficult thing to experience in terms of, I mean, what I feel like what we're getting around to again is that parasocial idea, that the relationship between the audience and the creator, where because video essays are kind of intimate, again, as we were talking about some of the defining characteristics, you're often being engaged in a conversation, they're very long form, they're very stimulating in terms of that kind of audio-visual rhythm to them. So they're really designed to enter into someone's brain through a conversation. So it's to be expected suddenly that they'll think, particularly if they've been listening to it while going to bed or doing the dishes, these intimate domestic moments, they'll reach out and say, and again, it's those blurrings of boundaries, right? Sometimes like it can be positive.
It's like I stimulate your brain and I make you feel comfortable, and that's really beautiful. But I don't really want to make comfort media. I want to make confront media.
Yeah.
I want to like make something that you're just like, oh no. I think that's the most beautiful thing in the media that I look for. Something where like I watch something, I didn't know that much about it, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my god, you just flipped the table on me. It's kind of what I want to make, and I kind of want to be this chaotic sort of like a highly knowledgeable person who's thought way too hard about this small thing, and you just have to sit there and listen.
Are there any video essay creators that you particularly inspired by? Or
I think in that little bit I was talking about, I was certainly aping a little bit of CJ the X, which is like a young person who's a bit younger than me, and they sort of art god, all this sort of like this hyperactive sort of thing, and I caught myself for a while kind of ape that a little bit, and I'm like, no, I shouldn't do that. I quite liked them. There's another YouTuber who's much smaller than that named Biz Barclay who I quite like. They're this sort of there's a comment on the channel where it's kind of like big sister car ride. It's like late at night, you're just like sitting there and they're giving you like the lowdown on life, and there's like these huge big academic 3-hour monstrosities, which is kind of like my vibe. We mentioned Folding Ideas and FT Signifier. I very much was into like the bread tube thing for a while, which is like a bunch of like young people talking about communism on YouTube. You know what I mean? It's a bit hack and passe now, but I did sort of come up when that was a thing and it was a moment.
It is interesting. I mean, people creating video essays clearly watch each other's videos, and as you found yourself, sometimes you can suddenly find yourself in the show more section of the YouTube description field, and they've cited you.
Yeah.
That you're
like a girl on film. Like I'd watched her stuff for ages, and then I was like, oh my god, Senpai noticed me. What the hell?
Did you feel like reaching out to them, or
I left a comment being like, OMG, I'm here, but I didn't want to I have this thing. It's even outside of YouTube. I have this thing even with like friends where it's like we both follow each other on Instagram. We're not even friends. It's just that I know a lot about their life because they post a lot.
There you go.
And then they know a lot about my life because I post on YouTube a lot. I call it like mutual parasociality, and it's like a weird neurosis to the modern age, where it's like we've never actually met, but we know a lot about each other.
Look, that is that interesting phenomena. I think that's happened. There's so many more examples of it now. It was always there, I think, in terms of that kind of fans in the industry, that by fans for fans or something. So, David Tennant being interviewed about being Doctor Who and describing himself as a fan first. So, that kind of loss of stigma about fanishness behavior has meant there's this weird, as you're saying, parasocial aspect to it, right? Like, well, we're all fans, we're all creating this content, we're all kind of in this cost metric of doing something we love, but also all these sacrifices we're making. So there's an asymmetry there in terms of, you're creating content, but you're not getting any what would traditionally be seen as kind of an income, a job to define. For instance, it can be difficult telling someone that, when they ask you what you do, or what are some of the things you do, a part-time job or something, but then you say, I'm also doing video essays.
Yeah, I made this joke before we got on air where it's kind of like the video essay thing, particularly like the Port Arthur thing. I describe it as like I'm walking around with a peg leg. Like, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but eventually I do have to bring up how I lost my leg. It is kind of like it's not an intimidating thing, but it's like when I meet someone new, I kind of have to drop a bomb on them. And then, I have a friend who I recently made, and then like I mentioned, I did the video essay thing, and then they went and watched a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow,
I was
they binged.
Yeah, shout out Jamie. Probably watching at home. But like, I sort of, there's conversations I have with this person where like, oh, I remember when you said this thing. And I'm like, I didn't actually say that to you. I said that in a video essay. Where it's kind of like my consciousness of myself, how I am in front of someone else is kind of messed up with a digital amalgamation of myself. And again, like, we aren't really all that different. Like, I'm speaking to Craig. And I'm fairly like how I am on the street. And my video essay self, the main difference between him and me is that he's kind of more coherent. He's more able to like put words into a sentence in order without messing up words or stuttering. Because he's like being edited across time. And he's probably a bit more cocky, confident as well, just because he's like, I know the answer to this, don't worry. Whereas me, I'm like, oh, well, I have to think about that for a little while,
Nevertheless, there is, I guess there's, for some audiences, there's a symmetry there in terms of they're on that wavelength. It fascinates me, the moments of asymmetry, though, where the audience thinks you're someone you're not, in terms of they think you're the conspiracy theory guy. They think that you're the cozy I'm going to listen to you to go to bed guy. That's not upsetting.
Yeah, it's like on my channel, I have it's like this. It's not a joke, but it's like a bit that I do where it's like when I'm feeling extra cynical, I just refer to myself as Razzle.
Right.
You know, I just call myself. I'm just like, hey, sweetie, I'm Angus. This isn't a character. Unfortunately, I'm quite like this.
Yes. Yes.
You know, but then like there are things where like so for instance, I have a buddy. I met him in like a media class. He took it as an elective, and then like it took until I didn't see him for like a year and a half, and then I bumped into him again walking around the UTAS campus, and like it's not that I hadn't thought about him, but you know I'd been doing stuff. But like he'd gone ahead and watched all my YouTube videos several times, so it was kind of like I was no longer a student who I met in class with him. It was kind of like I was this sort of quote unquote micro celebrity, and they're kind of like, I have so many questions to ask you, and they're treating me as someone who I didn't actually just meet on a level playing field. I kind of have a bit more cultural capital in this person's mind than they do me, and it's not like I don't appreciate those moments because I work hard on what I do, and I like having small bits of myself recognized by other people. But nonetheless, it's sort of this, it's like a bit of a weird asymmetry thing that I'm still sort of trying to properly unpack. I tend to just like with my IRL friends, just be like, well, I'm in front of you right now, and you're getting a very disorganized version of me. But the disorganized version of me goes and makes the organized version of me. You know, unfortunately, all of someone's tweets aren't all bangers. There's going to be some duds, but hopefully, by speaking with this person IRL, we're going to like create something that's beautiful together.
And I guess, arriving at that moment of hope, given all of these challenges and commitments and costs, you know, why keep making video
So
essays?
that's like a beautiful question that you could probably make a whole episode on, but I can give you my short version. I tend to think that I was really attracted to video essays. One, because, I don't know, I'd watched them for years. Ever since I was in, since 2015 or 2016 when they really started to pop off, I was like, I wonder if I could do that. And then COVID happened, and I said to myself, I reckon I could do that with this insane Port Arthur thing. Try and speak to people of my generation in a language, in a diction and language that they understand. So I like video essays because they are intimate, they are one-on-one, and they are a sort of a bastion of long-form conversation in an era of short attention spans, I suppose. Now, I'm not going to be all romantic about it because I think that there's a lot of, as with most things that exist, a lot of video essays are kind of just slop. They're just like, here's the plot of a movie that I'm going to explain back to you. Yeah. That's why I didn't get too far into Saul fandom, just because it's a lot of like, and how do you survive this trap? I'm like, I'm not interested in that. I want to think about the American healthcare system and why John Kramer is really thinking really hard about this. You know, that's kind of my thing. And I think that like there is like a level of like a culture industry sort of critique to be had about like, I mean, YouTube around 2013 or so switched away from, we're going to do like short form animation and we're going to do short form skits and we're going to go towards retention time. So it went to like, it went to Let's Plays, where you can watch someone for half an hour every single day. So the algorithm switched towards that. And video essays, even though they tend to take a bit longer to make, they nonetheless have that retention thing. And there has to be certain qualities to a good video essay, good audio quality, good argumentation. There is a shared level of jokes, generally speaking. If I had like examples in front of me, I could give you like the way that someone cuts on like after they've gotten halfway through a vowel tends to be like a running gag, a level of in-group membership between people that says, yes, I watch these as well. I'm one of you. You listen to me now. So there is a level of like culture industry fanaticism, and I think there's a whole lot of bollocks out there that isn't really all that good. But I think the thing that I really like making about it is that I think it brings out a better version of me that I like. And I can kind of bottle my more clever moments into this little... I can put it in this box, and then years later I can look back and I can be like, oh my gosh, I made that little thing. Like, I'm not against watching my own videos, because sometimes I forget what I said about Silent Hill or whatever. And then I go back and I make it. I watch it, and I'm like, damn, I really cooked with that one. You know, and it's that thing where it sounds a bit sort of like a braggadocious to sort of talk about like, oh, wow, I'm so clever. I'm like, well, I wouldn't make it if I didn't believe in myself. And I think that it's just a matter of like trying to believe in yourself and believe that you have something worth saying. And if nothing else, it teaches you how to get your ideas across. And as someone who thinks a lot about performance and persona and sort of attempting to get yourself across to other people as a very autistic coded person. I think that it sort of helps me to arrange my thoughts. So I'm not doing it to get this end result of like, I want to be famous. I'm doing it because I kind of get something out of the medium that I would be missing in my life if I wasn't doing it.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Look, it's one of those spaces where I guess for older generations, the assumption is, well, everyone's creating content. It's this brave new world. But not many people are. It's an amazing achievement to actually create that content, the effort, time that's unrecognized and then thankless to research and to put it out there. And
I love like making like the Port Arthur series and then someone's like, have you considered this? And I just give them the time code because I know exactly where everything is because I spent hours and hours making it. But they don't really treat you as like a person because they're not really there to listen to you. They're there to get their own opinion validated.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well, we're not watching this I didn't make this and you're not watching it for the same reason. And you know what? That's fine because someone will watch it and maybe they're on the precipice of being a bit of a strange cooker. And maybe they'll watch it and be like, actually, you know what? That was whack. I'm not going to, that was a silly thing of me and I'm going to step away from it. And then hopefully someone, like some Yank or some Brit, maybe someone in Germany really finds my videos and they're rather tickled by me. I have one person from Argentina who always comments on my videos and I'm like, yeah, let's go. Nitro, let's go.
A true global conversation.
Yeah.
And it is amazing to suddenly have that global engagement.
Yeah.
Well, we're at time, Angus.
Oh my gosh.
A fantastic, deep exploration into your work. So if people want to engage with some of the work that you're doing, where can they go?
Sure, you can go to the Old Razzle Dazzle on YouTube.
And that's OLE.
OLE, so TEH, all capitals on the individual words.
Yeah.
You'll find it, hopefully. Look up why Saw 6 is the best one, actually. Then you might be able to find me.
So why Saw 6 is the best one, actually?
Why Saw 6 is the best one. It's the most likely way to find me.
And that was your real kind of breaking the metrics.
It's so funny, like IRL. Like, oh, I make YouTube stuff. Look up Saw, and then my face is there, and they're like, what? But also I should say that like I haven't uploaded in like a year and a half or a year, but I am working on my biggest individual video ever. So like, you know what? Maybe in the next month or so, you're going to see me drop like a 5-hour video and it's going to be the most unhinged thing with the most amount of plot twists you ever saw in your life.
Well, if not before then, hopefully we'll have you in before then, but if not, by then it'll be great to have you back on Media Mothership to unpack the next contribution to the video essay space that you create.
Yeah, when I eventually make the nightmare video essay, that'll be like 10 hours and it's about media consumption ethics. That's going to be the one that I've been working on for 2 years, and it's going to be a goddamn doozy.
Well, there we go. We're hearing it here first. So it's a deep dive.
I completely intended to transition into that. that was my transition.
It's a good plug.
What can I say? I'm simply the best guy around.
It's going to be a deep dive into kind of media consumption ethics. Right. So and some of the thesis will feed into that, maybe.
Oh, you betcha.
Great. And again, we've still got to track down if your thesis is in the Morris Miller Library.
Yeah, I looked up. It isn't.
It isn't.
So I gotta email some people and be like, hey, what the hell, man? I want to be a big academic guy.
Totally. Yeah, because it's kind of pseudo published at that point.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
It's in the library. All right, well, Angus, wonderful to have you on again. So if people are keen to find out more of Angus's video essays, go to the old Razzle Dazzle. There'll be links in the show notes that you can find on our podcast, or head over to YouTube. We'll put some information on there. That's been Media Mothership for this week. Next week, we'll make it up as we go along. So who knows?